Disclaimer: this video focuses specifically on the cultural aspect of games as an entertainment product, hence the title. If you want to bitch about the topic at hand, I invite you to at least respect the opinion presented, and if not, I strongly advise ignoring this video and be mad at something else. Also, some topics discussed here may trigger or upset you, and major events of both Marvel Spider-Man and Spider-Man Miles Morales will be spoiled, so viewer discretion is advised. 2020 was one big blur, one we never knew when it would end or even top itself. From the heightened racism, discrimination, bigotry, and event after event, the year seemed to be the tipping point. With the sudden rise of the global pandemic, there was also a surge of xenophobic attacks against the Asian community because of the virus origin, and the tipping point of police brutality in the United States with the death of George Floyd, sparking civil unrest and major protests around the globe against racial inequality, police brutality, and a broader discussion around the overall structure of institutional racism against people of color and minorities. It was a tiresome year, to say the least. From the many awful instances 2020 brought us, it also spawned positive events and circumstances to combat the negative energy surrounding the year, like Blacktober, which saw a large collective of black artists and cosplayers reimagining their favorite characters with a melanated coat, a larger focus around the games industry to diversify its workforce, some methods ethically questionable, while others necessary to see a change, in the overall conversation around accessibility, diversity, inclusion, equity, and games this year for sure didn't shine on that front. Titles like The Last of Us Part 2, with its staggering 60+ accessibility options, setting a new standard for major games with accessibility options in general. Animal Crossing with its gender-neutral options, allowing for more player expression, and Ghost of Tsushima with its beautiful and accurate portrayal of 13th century Tsushima Island, a diverse cast of characters, and a robust combat system that further strengthens the playable samurai dream. Yet, only one game stood out amongst these, going above and beyond and elevating the bar in proper POC representation in games, and that title is Marvel Spider-Man Miles Morales. Miles Morales showcases an astounding attention to detail in Miles' origin as a biracial Puerto Rican New Yorker, his fears and anxieties with his neo-Spidey duties, and his relationship and connections within his frosting community of Harlem. Before we dive deep, it's only fair if we took a dive and explored Miles' inceptions, both in the comics and his initial influences, so we're all on the same page. As a new variant of the popular webhead, Miles' origins began when Marvel, back in 2008, felt inspired by the election of Barack Obama, the US first African American president, and took a good look at its well-established characters and created a new version of Spider-Man for the long-running Ultimate Marvel Parallel Universe foregoing at the time in the comics. They were also inspired by California-born creator Donald Glover and his character in the TV series Community. In one scene where he wakes up and leaves his bed wearing a Spider-Man t-shirt, thanks to a joke based upon a social media campaign to have him play a live-action version of Spider-Man. That imagery further strengthened the final look for Miles and his personality.
Of course, I would always be honored to play Spider-Man. It's Spider-Man, but I just want Spider-Man to be I just want it to be good. I always look at everything I do, not to say I'm doing it or I just want everything to be as interesting and have a conversation attached to it as possible. I want the Spider-Man movie to be dope. That's all I want, because I love Spider-Man. I just want it to be dope. But if they asked me, it was a thing. Yeah.
And as a result, we got this beautiful face in your screen. The then 13-year-old son of African American police officer Jefferson Davis and the Puerto Rican nurse Rio Morales. He was bitten by a spider during a visit to his uncle Aaron, and the rest is history, going through many highs and lows throughout his teen years until the Secret War storyline, in which the entire Marvel Universe merged with other alternative universes, making Miles, now 16 years old, a main character in the mainstream Marvel Universe alongside Peter, where subsequent storylines continue to go on to this current day, in addition to other solo stories featuring him. As you can already tell, Miles was received with mixed reception when he debuted. For many, he was lauded for being a mainstream black superhero that not only inspired many children that look like him, but also showcasing that black people are not defined by the often stereotypical connotations we're depicted in. For others, however, he was criticized for feeling tokenistic, a publicity stunt, and the cause of political correctness. It got so loud that the writers had to come out and deny every claim raised against Miles, with Alex Alonso, Marvel's then editor-in-chief, justifying the character's existence by stating, end quote, "Simple fact is, Marvel Comics reflect the world in all its shapes, sizes, and colors. We believe there's an audience of people out there who is thirsty for a character like Miles Morales. Even the late Stan Lee himself approved Miles from the get-go." As the years went on, we saw Miles gain some mainstream attention, where he starred in the animated series Ultimate Spider-Man, and voiced by surprise Donald Glover himself after the unsuccessful campaign.
My name is Miles Morales, and I'm Spider-Man. We're not ghosts, right? Because if I'm dead, my mom and dad are gonna kill me.
Miles later reappeared in Disney XD's Spider-Man animated TV series, where he was voiced by Nadji Jeter, who currently voices Miles in the Insomniac game. Miles' popularity peaked with Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, a movie that both retells Miles' origin story with a new fresh bit of cult as he struggled to come to terms with his new powers and challenge animation as a medium, where traditional, newer, and more experimental techniques were used to make the movie's art style distinctive and unique, making it one of the most memorable experiences of this current time. I consider 2018 to be Spidey's best year in the recent decade. During this year, there was also a never-ending barrage of Marvel content all around, with the release of Black Panther and Avengers Infinity War, and Spider-Man was no different, both in the comics and in the release of the Spider-Verse movie. In that same year, Marvel's Spider-Man, a PlayStation exclusive developed by premier developer Insomniac Games, was released. In this new interpretation of the webhead, we see a more experienced Peter, as he now got the gist of how to balance his personal life with his superhero duties. To the surprise of many, myself included, we also saw Miles sharing the same universe with Peter and having the worst airline in a character ever. Like, look at this, where is this even supposed to be? Now, as a 16-year-old student that, with the unfortunate loss of his father, befriends Peter, who introduces him to Feast, a non-profit shelter, where he volunteers to process his grief and keep himself occupied. After Pete's fight with Mr. Negative, he gets badly injured, and immediately rushed to Feast during the Devil's Breath crisis, and while sorting through some packaging, Miles gets bit by the genetically modified spider that escaped from Norman's lab, permeating him with superhuman abilities. With his new powers and under the mentorship of Peter, a year later we are finally introduced to his solo adventure that is Marvel Spider-Man Miles Morales. In this title, we see Miles, although in his first steps, now take the role of the friendly neighborhood mantra as Peter leaves town. As it is always with superhero stories, a new threat rises and it's up to Miles to put a stop to it. First impressions are always important, and from the get-go, what Miles Morales nails is the World's Stone and Miles' appearance. The latter might seem a weird thing to touch upon, but hear me out for a sec. First things first, the music. Miles is a music producer himself, having learned from his uncle at a very young age. Being a kid from Brooklyn, a city richly known by its mainstream presence in pop culture and housing some of the most iconic pioneers of well-known music genres such as jazz, hip-hop, and rock music, Miles finds himself surrounded by many cultural backgrounds that influence his style and tastes, and the game's composer, John Paesano, didn't slack on this core element of the game. With the help of Grammy winner producer Boy Wonder, best known for his work on Kendrick Lamar's The Blacker the Berry, Eminem's I'm Not Afraid, and Rihanna's Work, both producers collaged old and new to deliver as a mix of trip-hop, trap, drum machine that fit perfectly into the symphonic nature of the game's hip-hop oriented soundtrack. Side note, the game also features 3 original songs from Jaden and Lecrae, who both offer their stylish flair to the game's cinematic presentation. Jumping onto Miles' appearance, the man himself finally got a new barber and now sports a newer and more confident haircut that gracefully showcases his hairline, and thanks to the amazing character artist at Insomniac, his fate is brought to life with a scary lifelike accuracy. We can't also forget his Timbs, those shiny heavy-ass boots. For those out of the loop, Timbs is a meme that references the hip-hop culture and how extravagant some outfits can be, so it's endearing to see Insomniac paying tribute by having Miles representing the culture. As we see Miles step out of the train station and enjoying some fresh beats from Lecrae, his first instincts are to help the man lift the couch to the truck and help with the spider mural being painted. Miles is a passionate, endearing, and hard-working individual, often putting others before him. He's also a very stubborn individual when his ideals are challenged. This is perfectly showcased when he fights his uncle, with the latter wanting to protect him, while the former is determined to risk his own life to protect his community. And the same with Finn, with him remaining resilient and wanting to change her thought process driven by anger, angst, and resentment. Even with his big heart, throughout the game he does not give himself enough credit for the effort and work he puts in. As a teenager, having to balance social life with the burden of hiding his identity and keep his community safe takes a toll on him often. He feels insecure about some of his choices and situations that turn awry by the minute. He often fears for his closer relative's safety as he is only one and can't be in multiple places at the same time. The game unfortunately moves at a brisk pace, not giving character development enough room to breathe, and some moments often feel rushed. But make no mistake, Miles' struggle resonates with a lot of folks of color, especially in this current political climate we live in. One point I would love to highlight is that Miles, as a black man, perfectly represents the current diverse culture the black community has to showcase. I feel this is a perfect point to highlight because when POC, specifically black people, are depicted in entertainment products, we're often portrayed as loud, a mouthful of slurs, criminals, violent, secondary, useless, and many more stigmas not worth mentioning. I'm mindful that these types of people exist, and I won't ever deny that, but when you use that specific stereotypical template, it further perpetuates the imagery of how a common black person looks and behaves. With Miles' character, we're slowly breaking that mold by showcasing that we can be more, and these standardized roles shouldn't limit our dreams, creative freedom, and thought of process. I am not Hispanic. I've grown strongly around African culture, given that I'm from Africa, so I don't feel it's my place to best portray and dissect the cultural Hispanic representation in the game, but that doesn't mean I'll fully dismiss it from this video. Instead, let's see how people of Hispanic descent strongly feel about this.
This is my favorite part of living in Harlem. Pop-up street fair, best food in the city, awesome music.
Man, this would be great for the last beat I was working on.
This has to be Spanish Harlem.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Wow. I wasn't expecting to get this emotional. Shit.
What do you think about Rio Morales?
I got a ball. I gotta take a second. So, God damn it. Representation matters. It matters. This is awesome to see. My heritage, part of my heritage, just being on display with a character that I love.
Miles, I missed this part.
See, this is my favorite part of living in Harlem.
Is that a Puerto Rican flag?
Best food in the city, awesome music.
In a game?
This would be great
There's
for the
salsa in the
last
game?
I should get back into mixing.
I'm gonna cry.
It's been a while.
What do you think about Rio Morales? You gonna vote for her?
It's still hard to think of Mom as a politician. She's been a
Is this
teacher my
real?
whole life.
Similar skill sets, right? Corralling people, educating them. making
Is this
sure they don't
real?
throw things at each other.
You guys noticed I'm definitely crying. Okay. There's just something about like, whew, something about being able to see, like, you know, the flag and the environment and the people in a video game. One, I didn't expect it at all. I never expected. And not just that, but also a very well loved superhero is just very new, and it's amazing. And I'm sure a lot of people, you know, will feel it too, just like me. I guess it's just we need more. We need more. I think we need more love, I think.
It's insane how present they decided to put that. The set piece with the level where you go to you know, your apartment and you see all the Puerto Rican flags, and he talks about his abuela, and you put the music and you see her mom's making the pasteles. It's so much fun, you know. There's so much inclusion, just like put it right in your face, because a lot of people do not know that he's Afro-Latino, that he's Puerto Rican. You know, they think he's just black, and that's it.
And there is plenty of Spanglish, some Puerto Rican flags, little actual authentic details that I recognize as a kid growing up with Puerto Rican heritage myself, like Miles, just stuff in his house.
Guys, seriously, this is the kind of albums in my grandma and grandpa's house. This fucking game is ridiculous. This is fucking fun as fuck. This is authentic motherfucking shit. That's very cool.
They're good. They saw a sea turtle the size of a Labrador off Molokini yesterday.
Oh, I have some of those. This shit is so authentic. Dude, Joe, you know I have some of these. I bought some of those in Puerto Rico. We all buy those. I don't know.
Important to have a Spider-Man Miles Morales game. Woo, okay.
This game, I feel like, put us out there. We just need people to understand that you could never tell or judge someone by the way it looked.
One thing I definitely will say is I felt like Spider-Man Miles Morales is one of the first times in any media I've seen aspects of my culture portrayed so accurately.
And especially in a major name game like Spider-Man.
I love this game so much. The gameplay is fun. Combat is fun. It's really fast and exciting once you get the hang of it. It's kind of one of those easy to get into, harder to master type of thing.
Not just that, but he's being presented in such a positive, good light.
So this is why when Miles Morales, the game came out, and we got to see the basic intro of Miles walking through Harlem, it was amazing. You hear the music, you hear, you know, the different language, Spanglish, basically, the different languages and people interacting with each other, and just the sights, the flag. It was very important.
The footage you've just seen shows how Insomniac paid the utmost attention to any detail to include in the game, and the results speak for itself. All in all, it's safe to say that Spider-Man Miles Morales perfectly establishes Miles as his own self-being by perfectly structuring his character around his origins as a biracial teen Yorker, the cultural influences that surround him in his everyday environment, and realistic portrayal of his relationships as a son, friendly ally, and friendly neighborhood individual. This sum up also serves as a jumping point to the overall message of this dissection. There's a TED Talk from musician and activist Daryl Davis in which he explained why he, as a black man, attended KKK rallies, and during the talk, as he tries to interpret his meaning on the roots of racism, he says the following.
Ignorance breeds fear. We fear those things we do not understand. If we do not keep that fear in check, that fear in turn will breed hatred, because we hate those things that frighten us. If we do not keep that hatred in check, that hatred in turn will breed destruction.
Adding to my point of view to his opinion, there are two extremes that breed hatred against people of color and even influences self-hatred: fear and influence. Let me explain. Fear, as it was already explained, stems from the lack of knowledge of the unknown. We tend to be defensive or hostile when we encounter situations out of our experiences, and those emotions often more than not tend to lead to hostile and harmful scenarios. Racism in this case is triggered by the skin of our color, cultural differences, and mannerism. We're judged for our skin being from a different pigment. We're judged by different beliefs they often disapprove of because it's not part of theirs, and we're judged by the way we interact with people, which forces us to switch code often. On the other hand, influence is a powerful tool, and it plays a big role in how the most deep-rooted societies operate to this day, whether it's politics, laws, or anything that involves. Entertainment also makes a part of that equation. We see how culture, upbringing, and early influence manifests and shapes our psyches to define the personalities of our current and future self. Someone who grew up around a dangerous neighborhood with a strong violent presence and said person had little paternal figure to keep them sane and straight differs vastly from someone who grew around a peaceful neighborhood with a strong paternal figure. When we ask for proper representation in our media, it's not only because we want to see someone who looks like us to make us feel more confident, but we also want to see them portrayed in a different light. The often stereotypical representation undermines the image of a certain race, and whenever we encounter situations in real life where they are brought up, it often triggers our flight or fight situation, because it's either too mentally stressful for us to bear, or because we've endured it for so long that although we know how to keep the situation under control, deep down it never stops hurting. Insomniac, thank you. Thank you for perfectly portraying Miles as a positive beacon of light that'll hopefully help further break the structured stereotypes established in our societies. For any game developer watching this, please try harder and never stop striving in delivering proper representation so we can all have an equal seat at the table and further diversify our stories for an equal and further enjoyment. Hello. Thanks for watching the video. This is something I've been meaning to do ever since the game came out. I haven't wrote an article and everything, but I haven't posted yet. The reaction videos that I use will be credited down in the description. Their Twitter, YouTube channel, and the link of the video used in the video. Follow me if you like the video. Subscribe to this YouTube channel for more content like this. Follow me on Twitter for shenanigans I post. I don't know why I post them, but I post them. I also do illustrations. Here's my Instagram if you want to follow. I'm currently doing a 6 fan art illustration, so I had to pause it because of this video, but now I'm going back to it. So yeah, if you want to follow that, there's that. I would also like to apologize the different voice tones in the video. I don't have a microphone, so there's only so much I can do with a headset microphone and editing software. Follow me on Twitch. I don't stream that much. It's actually gonna be my first time, so yeah, follow me there. And yeah, once again, subscribe if you like the video. Leave a like and share with people. I want to see other people's reaction. It would be so fun. What else did I want to say? Yeah, follow my Twitter for stupid shenanigans that I post. I also update videos, so there's that. Follow me on Twitch, and that's it. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.